All right, so yesterday we worked through our cube here. I'm going to go ahead and kind of do some relighting because it's real dark. So hopefully you guys can see it better. And I'm going to focus in my camera here. Okay, so we just had a couple little blending things that I wanted to finish. And then I'm going to go through the rest of the forms or the shapes with you. Okay. Here we go. Sorry about that. Okay, so you should have your B pencil and your H pencil. And I know it's a little dark. Trying to get it lit up as much as possible for you guys to see. Okay. All right, so we worked through our values here yesterday. Personally, I want to do a little bit more blending work up here in this upper corner. That may not be the same for you, but I just kind of want to smooth that out a little bit so that I've got some nice transitions rolling through, okay? So as per yesterday, we established our light source coming in from the left-hand side. We matched our values accordingly to that. We also gave our background some atmosphere. We have our cast shadow, and we worked through the tabletop there, okay? So we're gonna continue on into the next three shapes, the circle, the cylinder, and the cone, or the sphere, rather than the circle, once we give it some form, okay? And we're gonna do it about the same way. So for time demonstration's sake, as I move on, I'm not going to do the full background and the tabletop. I'll establish and probably do the cast shadow with you guys, but I won't do those as part of the demonstration because I've already done it here, and it's going to be the same thing in each square. So even though I'm not demoing background and tabletop for each one, you will still be expected to finish each square out like that. Okay, everybody understand that? Yeah, okay. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and start with the circle or the sphere, okay? And we're gonna kind of go opposite-ish. Instead of doing our dark, medium, or light first, we're gonna start with the light first, okay? So I'm gonna switch over to my H pencil. And with the sphere, it's a little tricky because you have to show its roundness. And if you use your pencil just straight up and down to shade, it's not going to show the roundness of the sphere. So you're actually going to be shading in kind of like semi-circle moves, all right? So it's going to be a little tricky. You're just going to have to practice on it, okay? Hey. It is up here on this front table in the top tray. So anytime we have worksheet, it'll be there. No, you're okay. And then we'll actually be starting on the back side, and then you can catch up on the front side later. Yeah, there you go.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Sorry, Tatum, I forgot. All right, guys. Okay, so I'm working with my H pencil first, and the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to give myself kind of like a guideline on where I'm going to be showing like my brightest highlight. Okay, so basically what I've told myself here is I'm getting kind of like that circle shape that's on here, but I'm saying I don't want to go further past that. So I'm just kind of marking it out for right now. Okay, so then I'm going to go ahead and start using my, got something there, H pencil, and I'm working in like a 1 or a 2 value, so very little pressure. And I'm gonna almost kind of like make different valued rings throughout here, so it'll kind of look like a jawbreaker a little bit. And then I'll use my B pencil to blend it all together, okay? So I'm just going to kind of work in rings. So there I've started with a really light value, so like 1 or 2, or more like 2 or 3, okay? And so then the next ring that I'm going to kind of place in here is going to be more like 3, 4. So again, you'll kind of be able to see the rings right now, but then when we come back on top with our B pencil, those will be kind of blended out. You won't see them as much anymore. Okay, so kind of, you know, working almost like crescent moon type thing going on here. My negative space, okay. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and switch over to my B pencil now. And so the next ring, I'm starting with my B pencil, so remember that it's a lot darker than your H pencil. So even though I'm gonna be getting darker values, I'm gonna use my pencil a lot softer than what I just used on the H pencil, okay? So I'm still, this is really light. I'm not pressing down very hard with this B pencil, but I'm still getting a much darker value. Okay, remember we kind of talked about that yesterday in our other demonstration. Okay, so just kind of working that in there, and that's going to be more like your 6 and 7s. And then this very last little sliver, I want to get that as dark as I can. Well, not as dark as I can. I don't want it a 10. So I'm going to shoot for like an 8 or a 9. 11. Nice. Okay. All right. So you can kind of see my rings as I work through that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this B pencil really lightly to kind of blend all those together. So over here on the right hand side, I'll be using a little bit more pressure, and then as I move back towards that center, well, not center, but that highlight point, I'll get lighter and lighter. So I'll kind of just start here in the middle. Move your pencil in semicircle movements. Okay, start practicing that. Get that curvature of the sphere down. Okay, you need to capture that. Okay, so I'm just kind of working through those layers, and you might tell that your B pencil is having, like the graphite from that is having a little bit of a hard time going on top of the H graphite that's already left there, and that's just because of the different hardnesses of the graphite itself. Okay, so your goal on this is to get really nice gradual fade, kind of like how we did in our value scales, a couple of them on the front of the worksheet. Okay, so just using this in the semicircle just to blend all that out. Okay, I'm going to switch back over to my H pencil because I don't want this highlight to be pure white. I want some value in there, but I want it to be really, really light. So I'm just targeting kind of a 1, and I'm using my pencil really sketchy. So I'm just kind of barely letting it touch that top, or barely letting it touch the paper. Here we go. Kind of like that. Okay. All right. And then last thing that I would do to finish this up is I want to put my cast shadow in there. So I switched over to my B. I'm coming out straight from the bottom of my circle here, my sphere. And it's going to be kind of like an elongated oval, and it might even technically go off of the page. Okay, and then if my shadow is my darkest value, what number am I pushing for? A 10. A 10, good. Okay, so your cast shadow needs to be your darkest value in the whole composition. There you go, kind of like that. Okay, and give you guys just a second to catch up, those of you that are a little bit behind. And I'm going to move straight onto the cylinder after I get a mint here. Okay, cylinder. It's not necessarily tricky, but it's a little different because not only is it curved, but it also has, it's like curved, but it's straight at the same time. The sides of it are straight, and then it has a flat top. So according to the top, are we going to treat it value-wise like the sphere, or are we going to treat it more like the cube? More like the cube. It's okay, Rayleigh. So the reason why so Rayleigh, what you were answering is the sides like this. We are definitely going to blend it out like that. But on the top, because it's flat, just like the cube is, it's going to be one flat, solid value. Does that make sense to everybody? Yeah. So we're going to go ahead and use the B pencil, really, really light. Up there on the top to get just a solid flat value. Okay, so you're aiming for like a 4 or 5. Okay? Okay. All right. Next on the cylinder, with our light source that's coming straight from the side, and I kind of did it differently for my first 2 classes this morning, and I'll do it different for you guys, and I'll do it different for 7th hour. What I did, I'll get that example. What I did this morning with my first 2 classes when I was starting this out, I gave a little bit of a shadow on the very left-hand side to try and kind of show that the cylinder was going back into space. But I'm going to change that for you guys, and we're just going to do a straight on highlight right there, because if our light source is coming directly into the left, there really technically wouldn't be a shadow there. I was kind of pushing it and doing it more what I know instead of what I see. Okay, so I'm going to switch to my H pencil, and I'm going to go ahead and, like what I did on my sphere, I'm going to kind of mark out my area on where my highlight's going to be. So I'm going to kind of say that here in this area, I need to keep it really nice and light. Okay, so then from that line, I'm going to start working my H pencil over to the right-hand side. I'm still using it pretty lightly, and really what I'm doing is just putting down a base value. Excuse me. So that I can just kind of work from this and make adjustments rather than doing it from straight white. So over here on the right-hand side, I'm going to use a bit more pressure with that H pencil, but I'm still going to switch to my B pencil right after this and blend out those values more with that pencil. Okay, so even though the surface or the sides technically of this cylinder is straight, it's also got a curve. So we make our shadow curve like we did on the sphere, but our technique that we're using to shade instead of doing semicircles is just straight up and down. And I think most of you caught on to that as I started doing that. Okay, I switched over to my B pencil, and it's getting pretty dull, so I'm going to take a quick moment here to sharpen it, and you can do the same. If your pencils are starting to get dull, remember I've talked about that, how important it is to have sharpened pencils. Okay, a little better. All right, so with my B pencil, I'm going to start on the very right-hand side. You don't want to go as dark as you possibly can because you need to reserve that for your cast shadow. So I'm going to target like an 8 or so. And then as I get closer and closer to that highlight, I'm going to gradually lift up and stop my pressure, or lessen my pressure rather than just stopping. Okay, so as I move closer and closer to the white, I'm pushing less and less. And then I'm just going to keep going through and work at I'm going to work at blending these together. And to get a nice gradual fade here. Kind of like this. Okay? So I don't want to leave that highlight pure white. So I'm going to grab my H pencil again. I know it's a lot of back and forth. And then I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to very lightly, like a 1 or so, add that back in. Just like that. There we go. And then cast shadow for this guy would be coming a little before the corner. So you kind of want to look at where does the base start. And you're going to go straight out from there. And it's just going to hang off the side. And then because this guy's real tall, the cast shadow is that whole backside back there. So I'm going to go ahead and get that in. And again, I'm not going to demonstrate the background or the tabletop for you guys, but you do need to finish that up on your own once we break here. Okay. All right, cone, last one. Okay. So same thing, figuring out where our highlight is. We're also going to work in an up-down kind of technique. But the way that this works is you kind of also have to work at a diagonal, and you kind of are shifting how you work on the cone. So to set my highlight, I'm going to go straight down from the top, and I'm just going to draw a straight line, like I'm almost kind of dividing the cone in half.
With the H pencil?
With the H pencil. Mm-hmm. Okay? And then I'm going to go ahead and start working my value with my H pencil on over to the right hand side. So just to start off with the cone so I can kind of get used to working at a diagonal, I just put a base value down first. I don't really even worry about trying to do different pressures when I first start. Okay. So then once I get that base value down, now I can start adding some pressure down onto my pencil. I'm still using the H. I'm going to be switching over to the B pencil here in just a little bit. Okay, something like that. All right, now I've switched over to my B pencil. I'm going to start on that right-hand side there. Okay, and kind of the way that the cone works out is like your value change up at the very top is going to be very, very small. Like your lines or how much area you're working is smaller, whereas your bases are a lot wider as far as like value range. So it's like you're almost making little triangles on a triangle. Okay, so as I move over closer and closer to the highlight, I'm going to get lighter and lighter. So this one's a little tricky. So now I'm just going to work at getting a nice gradual values in here. Kind of something like that. And then I'm going to pick up my H pencil and I'm going to work those really light values over on the other side and try to get some blending going through here. Kind of something like this. Not my best today. Okay. Now, the next thing that I want you guys to grab out of your supply pack is this thingy. This is called a tortillon. I also want you to grab your small eraser that's out of there. You can use your big one if you've got a good straight edge still, or a good corner. I've kind of used up all my corners, so they're not cornery anymore. Okay? So what I'm going to show you is how you use this, which is called a tortillon, and then I'm also going to show you how you can use your eraser. Okay? So in the bottom corner, so the way, well, I'm going to start in the bottom corner here in a second. The way that you use this tortillon is you need to hold it differently than like if you're working on a pencil. If you use it like on its point, you're going to destroy it because you're going to end up pushing too hard and making it collapse in on itself. So what you really need to do is you need to hold this tortillon where it's kind of on its side. You're more working on the side on the point, okay? And so all you're doing is you're kind of just working it in circle fashion, and you guys can already see that once you pick up graphite on your tortillon, it's there, and then you can even use that to help you shade. So here what you're doing, the purpose of the tortillon is to blend in your graphite, blend your values together even more using this tool, okay? So when you use this tortillon, you're going to notice that your values are going to get darker than where they started, and they're going to get a lot smoother. Just like that. So you're going to get it really nice and smooth. And again, once you pick up graphite, you know, you can almost use your tortillon and be like, hey, that's a 3 already right there, so I can just use my tortillon to draw that in there. Now, what happened to my cone? What did I lose?
Highlight.
I lost my highlight, okay? So, because your tortillon makes a lot of things darker, and if you are really good at blending, you're going to kind of go into those areas. So this is how you can use your eraser as a drawing tool. So I've got my little eraser here, and all I'm going to do is I'm kind of cleaning up on the outside of my cone here, which I don't really need to worry about that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the corner of this eraser, and I'm going to erase / draw back in that highlight using this eraser. Just like that. Now notice that I didn't go straight halfway like I did when I first kind of sectioned it out. And also notice that the line's really harsh. So I'm going to take just my tortillon. I'm not going to grab my pencils. And I'm going to go ahead and on that edge of that value, I'm going to use my tortillon to blend it and soften that edge up so it's nice and faded. Did everybody see that? Okay. All right, so last thing on the cone would be to establish that cast shadow. And really, I'm going to restart this. Because technically with the cone and your cast shadow, it's going to be tilted ever so slightly upwards. Ever so slightly. Okay, and then this whole back area back here can just be filled in. Just like that. Okay, you guys. So, what I expect to see on the backhand side of this, as far as what I'm looking for, is each square, I want you to have your background completed, your cast shadow completed, and your tabletop valued in, just like we did for the cube. And I want you to blend everything with your tortillon. Okay, so this cone's a little bit different than the one that we did. So this is kind of the example on how it would look if we wanted it to make it look like it's going back into space. But really, in doing that, I changed the light source from coming in from the left to where it's actually really coming in from like the bottom. Okay, so this is technically incorrect, whereas you guys, that's correct. Okay? All right, so does anybody have any questions over what they need to do for the back part of the worksheet? No? Okay. Does anybody have any, front part. So front part, what I'm looking for are all your value steps here. You do not need to go back and use the tortillion with these, okay? So you have your full value scale. 0 is completely blank paper. 10 is your darkest value that you can possibly get, and then everything in between. If you have values that look very similar, they look too close to each other, you will miss them. Okay, so make sure that you've gone back, you've not only cleaned them up, made them look nice, that all your values are different from the one before it and the one after. Okay, so here you did a pressure change where we just changed how hard we push down on our pencil, where over here we're pressing down really hard, and then as we move to the left we get lighter and lighter, or vice versa. This is self-explanatory. Use your H pencil here, B pencil here, and then the scale down here on the bottom, we split that in half, and so you should show a pressure varied H scale here and a pressure varied B scale right next to each other. Okay, does anybody have any questions? No? All right, so I'm going to give you guys the rest of the time to complete your worksheets, and I will be doing a check on them either tomorrow or Monday, probably hitting more Monday.